Then security testing. Security testing involves confidentiality, whether the authenticity of a person is going to be secured or not is checked here. Whether it may be in Windows environment, or it may be Windows NT environment, or it may be any other environment. It has to work properly in all those cases. And open source softwares like Python and Java, all these can be used by anyone who wants to use it. In order to perform white box testing on an application, a tester needs to know that the internal working of the code. Hello and warm welcome to one and all. It is Dr. Ravi Kumar YB, Department of Computer Science, Vidyashram, First Grade College, Mysuru, the Temple of Excellence. In today's class, you will be taught about the non-functional type of testing. In this case, you will come across the first one is usability testing. What is the meaning of usability testing? Once it is delivered to the client or to the stakeholder, it must be in a usable form. That means the black box test technique is used. It must be generic enough. That means it has to identify any error and improvements in the software by observing the users through their usage and operation, and how they are going to operate the software product is going to be verified. According to the person who proposed this usability testing, that is Nielsen, usability can be defined in terms of 5 factors. The first one is efficiency of use, second one is learnability, third one is memory ability, then errors or safety, and satisfaction. These are the 5 important criteria that is to be satisfied by the companies once it is delivered to the stakeholders. According to him, the usability of the product will be good and the system is usable if it possesses the following factors. Which are those? Let me tell you that. Neil Bevan and MacLeod considered that the usability of the quality requirement that can be measured as the outcome of the interactions with a computer system. That is, the person who will install the software into the stakeholders system, there it has to be cross-verified. This requirement can be fulfilled and the end user will be satisfied if the intended goals are achieved effectively with the use of proper resources. That is the same thing. UI, that is user interface versus usability testing. UI testing involves testing the graphical user interface of the software, that is GUI. UI testing ensures that the GUI functions are performing according to the requirements and tested in terms of color, alignment, size, and other properties. That's why the companies will be having their own standards of the icons, even if they want to put it in the buttons, text box must be of certain size, option button must be of certain size, choice button must be of certain size, what is the font of that, everything is defined, predefined by the company. They have to follow the certain set of standards when they use the drag and drop these user interfaces into the GUI. On the other hand, usability testing ensures a good and user-friendly GUI that can be easily handled. UI testing can be considered as a subpart of usability testing. It is a part of the usability testing. Then security testing. Security testing involves confidentiality, whether the authenticity of a person is going to be secured or not is checked here. Integrity, whether the integrated system means the integrity includes all the users who are going to use that is getting the proper access to the resources of the system. Authentication, as I told you in the confidentiality, that is only authenticated persons are allowed to use the system. Availability, even in case of load, peak load, it has to work for a longer period of time. That is called as availability. Then authorization, related to confidentiality and authentication. Only authorized persons are allowed. Non-repudiation, all these are certain type of security issues that is to be addressed by the security testing team. Then security testing team is used to secure against known and unknown vulnerabilities, that is software data is secure, then software is according to all security relations, the input checking and validation, SQL insertion attacks, injection flaws, session management issues, cross-site scripting attacks, buffer overflow vulnerabilities, directory traversal attacks. All these are certain types of testing which includes the security testing. Portability testing. We have two different types of methods or approaches to portability testing. First one is transferring the installed software from one system to another system, that is called as the portability testing. When the software is delivered to the user or to the stakeholder, we will not give the complete source code to him. We will give the executable code, that is .exe, to run on his system so that it is working on different platforms. He may use the system which is of Windows type of format. I may have developed it in Windows or in any other versions of the operating systems. So then it has to be compatible enough to work in all those. So we will give the .exe format of that to the stakeholder. That is called as a portability testing. The portability testing can be considered as one of the subparts of the system testing, as this testing type includes overall testing of the software with respect to its usage over different environments. I told you that whether it may be in Windows environment or it may be Windows and NT environment or it may be any other environment, it has to work properly in all those cases. That's why system testing is related with the portability testing. Then computer hardware, operating systems and browsers are the major focus of the portability testing. Because operating system I have used here may be Windows, or which may be used in another stakeholders, maybe of Unix, or it may be in another system, maybe of Android. That all depends on the individual perspectives. So it has to work properly on all these systems. So please keep that in your mind. When you want to work on Windows operating system, you will download the version of .exe which is specifically made for the Windows operating system. If you have any of the system which needs to be operated on Android, then you will go for Android version of that in your mobile phones. That is the reason you will get the Windows version as well as Android version. So portability is a very, very important issue which needs to be addressed. If the system is generic enough, then it can perform work very well on all these environments. But usually it is very difficult to have these systems to be workable on all these environments. So that's why the companies will release one of the version for Windows type of operating system and another version for operating Android type of operating systems. Then some of the preconditions for portability testing are as follows. The first one is software should be designed and coded keeping in mind the portability requirements. The same thing. Please notice that the portability requirement is very, very important because it has to work on all the operating systems. It is not at all possible. That's why they will use, sometimes it is possible. Some of the softwares, that is application softwares, will work even in Android application, Android mobiles as well as in the Windows mobiles. For example, let me take up one of the examples, that is web version of WhatsApp is released. Why they have released the web version of that? If they want to use it in the desktop, let them use the desktop version of that. Suppose if they want to use it in the mobile phones, let them use the Android version of that. So we have two versions of the softwares here. One version is meant for the desktop application, that is which works on Windows operating system, and the another version which is Android version, which is specifically for the Android systems, that is for mobile phones. Then integration testing has been performed here. Then test environment has been established. All these are pertaining to the portability testing. Then software testing methods. The software testing methods include black box testing. Black box testing involves without having any knowledge of the internal workings of the application is called as black box testing. Obviously, that has to be done by the testing team itself. The tester is obviously the system architect and does not have access to the source code because the source code is with the development team. Typically, while performing a black box test, a tester will interact with the system's user, that is the stakeholder interfaces, by providing the inputs and examining the outputs without knowing how and where the inputs are worked upon. That is, he will not be having the developed code with him, that is the tester. He will be having a .exe format of that software with him. He will be interacting with the user, and if there is any changes required for him according to the stakeholder, then it will be noticed in the report and it is given back to the developer. So the advantages of black box testing and the disadvantages of black box testing is mentioned here. Advantages is well suited and efficient for large code segments and limited coverage. That is the disadvantage of it. Code access is not at all required because .exe version will be available. So if anybody wants to use, please notice this, and open source softwares like Python and Java, all these can be used by anyone who wants to use it. But especially for licensed version of the softwares, this code accessibility is not at all required because the code is safely with the company. So there is no need to worry about it. Only the .exe format of that will be given to the users. So the disadvantage is inefficient testing due to the fact that the tester only has limited knowledge about an application because he will not be having any developed code with him. So that's why it is one of the disadvantage of the black box testing. Clearly separates the user's perspective from the developer's perspective through visible defined tools or roles. Blind coverage, since the tester cannot target the specific code segments or error-prone areas. Then large number of moderately skilled testers can test the application without any knowledge of implementation, programming language or operating system. That is an advantage because they will not be having any software code programs with them. They will be having the .exe. If they want to give any input, let them give input to the system. It is not a problem for them. But the only thing is they will not be having the internal working, how it is going to work. And of course, they will be having the knowledge of that. But the actual program will not be given to the tester. That is the only one thing. So it is safe and secure from the other people. It is safely be with the company. The test cases are difficult to design because they will not be having any code with them. So it is very difficult to identify the code segment in which the problem has occurred. So that's why they will find it difficult to test case the different design options. With this, moving on to the white box testing, we will be having the detailed investigation of the internal logic and structure of the code. That is, if I have any conditional statements, how the condition jumps or the control jumps from one line to the other line based upon the input given by the user is going to be detailed investigation is done by the white box testing team. The white box testing is also called as glass testing or open box testing because they will be having a source code with them. In order to perform white box testing on an application, a tester needs to know that the internal working of the code. The tester needs to have a look inside the source code and find out which unit or chunk of the code is behaving inappropriately. That is done by the development team as well. That is white box testing. White box testing is a testing team that is done by that is a part of a testing team that gets the source code with them. Then advantage, moving on to the advantage of white box testing. As the tester has knowledge of the source code, it becomes very easy to find out which type of data can help in testing the application effectively. The disadvantage on the other hand is, it is the skilled tester is needed to perform the white box testing because of the increased cost. It helps in optimizing the code. And of course, it is impossible to look into every nook and corner of the application, that is hidden errors that may create a problem in the later versions. So extra lines of code can be removed which can bring in hidden defects. It is difficult to maintain the white box testing as it requires specialized tools like code analyzers and debugging tools. That is expensive in terms of the disadvantage. Due to the tester's knowledge about the code, maximum coverage is attained during test scenario writing. So we do not have any disadvantage. So with this, I'm going to conclude this session, that is non-functional testing. If you have any questions with respect to the topics I have discussed, kindly come back to me in the department. I will be available. Thank you very much. Thank you one and all, my dear students.